Welcome to the first ever School's Out 80s. In a world like ours, we need to laugh and have fun. This episode is Get to Know Your Host episode. I will be introducing you soon to my co-host Leanne. But first, let's go back and set the scene. It's the 1980s. Reagan is president. Ketchup is a vegetable. Madonna is on top of the pop chart. Michael Jackson is both king and the thriller. Beer is $3.50 a six-pack or 2 pounds. Movies are $3 or 2 pounds. Van Halen are the monsters of rock. Russia is the enemy. James Bond is the man. TVs are furniture, and MTV is playing all day long. This was a time of people coming together, families and friends, to have a good time and enjoy each other's company. You didn't stare at your cell phone. You told jokes, you cut up, hugged, danced, and celebrated life. Our show is going to take you back in time. Those stories, the funny stories you can't help but remember. Life is short, so Leanne and I are here to entertain you. This show is clean, not crude. No real names are used, and we want to share our funny stories with you so you can share your funny stories with us. Again, welcome to the first ever School's Out 80s.
Welcome to School's Out 80s. I'm John Sales Warrior from Texas, and this is Leanne Savage coming to you all the way from Birmingham, England. This is our first episode, so our whole goal here is so that you can get to know us. But throughout the entire series, we're going to try to entertain you, and we're going to try to tell you funny stories. But before we do that, I just want you to get to know Leanne. Leanne, say hello to everybody and tell us all about Birmingham.
Hi everybody, I'm really looking forward to this. I'm excited to hear some funny stories and to entertain everybody, especially during, this time. We all need a bit of happiness and some entertaining. But I'm from Birmingham, England, which is the second city of England, and it's right in the centre. There's over 2 million people in Birmingham, and what I really like about Birmingham is that it's a multicultural city, so you can meet all different kinds of people right on your doorstep. And sorry, I'm a little bit distracted because I do have 3 children as well, and one of them is demanding my attention right now. So I'm a mum of 3. I've got 3 children. I'm back at university, and I'm a hairdresser and comedian. So, as they say, I am jack of all trades and master of none. But they say mature student. I'm not a mature student, and I don't think I'll be mature anytime soon.
Oh, you know what, Leanne, the way I would see it, you're kind of a triple threat. So you're a mom of 3. You're a comedian, a stand-up comedian. Most people can't even think about doing that. And it sounds like you've done it enough now where, though you might not be extremely well known yet, I would consider you to be a professional comedian. You're a hairdresser, which takes a really big heart to be a hairdresser, and you're a mom of 3. That's huge. So I would call you a triple threat. But I want to go through and spend some time, Leanne, really letting people get to know you. But I want to spend a little bit of time talking about just Birmingham, because I know there's like a really famous rock star from Birmingham. Can you tell us who that is?
Yeah, so there's going to be a few people now that are going to recognise the accent, and there is a man called Ozzy Osbourne, which most of you will know, who is from Birmingham. I will say eating bats is just an Aussie thing. It's definitely not a Birmingham trait. I was talking to a sweet old lady, and
Yeah.
she actually knew Ozzy personally, so she was best friends with his sister, and the band used to practice in her aunt's living room. So I find this idea of the neighbours complaining just really,
Right.
really funny. You know, they just complaining about the noise and having absolutely no idea just how big these guys were going to make it.
Yeah, yeah. I love Ozzy. Growing up in the 80s, Ozzy went solo in the 80s, and I just have the deepest respect for Ozzy. There's some things about Ozzy that a lot of people don't know and they could really respect about him. One is Ozzy has a really bad learning disability, and he thought he was stupid in grade school and in high school because of his bad learning disability. The other thing a lot of people don't know about Ozzy is Ozzy's name. Ozzy is John Osbourne.
And those are things that I didn't know. So
yeah,
now I know a bit more.
Well, in Birmingham's a huge manufacturing area.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So when Ozzy and some of the other guys from Black Sabbath were coming up, they were working manufacturing jobs, which kind of separates them in the rock and roll business. I mean, it doesn't completely separate them, but from the perspective of you think about somebody like the Doors, the Who, there's some education there for those guys. But Black Sabbath, those guys, literally came out of manufacturing jobs into worldwide stardom and just genius music. And I don't know that they ever had any professional training at all. It's just all their creative genius.
Yeah. And it's funny it's funny that you say that he had a learning disability, is it? Because actually I think a lot of people with learning disabilities are very creative. I mean, all three of my children have autism, and my daughter also has ADHD, so my children have learning disabilities. And I will say, I think when it brings out the creativity in you, because you have to find alternative ways to get around things and to enjoy yourself.
Absolutely.
So I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. One other little thing I wanted to mention about Ozzy and Black Sabbath, and God bless all your children. I mean, you just never know what heights they're going to be able to reach. We just can't put them in a box because you just never know. Tom Cruise has autism. John Ozzy Osbourne, autistic. The list goes on and on. The guy that plays in what is that show called? There's a sitcom where a skinny guy plays on it, and
The Big Bang Theory.
Big Bang Theory. Yeah. That guy is super autistic, and didn't stop him. I mean, and when I was a kid, they didn't even have that term autism. If you had somebody that was quiet and didn't talk to people and didn't have a lot of emotion, they said that they were stoic or that they were quiet. I mean, it's possible my dad had autism because he was a really quiet guy. So, it's all these labels we give each other. We can't, that's the motivational guy in me coming out. But anyway, but let's move on a little bit and talk a little bit more about Ozzy Osbourne, and then we're going to talk about you, Leanne. But one of the things I wanted to talk about Ozzy that I think a lot of people a lot of people would enjoy, just because I've spent a lot of my years like reading biography books, being a sales guy, being on the road a lot, just having a lot of time to myself, and just interested in other things than like what I'm doing. So Ozzy Osbourne, they were trying to come up with the name for the band, and so he was still living in his parents' house. And what do you guys call the bathroom in England, by the way?
Well, we go to the loo. You go into the loo.
The loo?
The loo, yeah.
Okay. Well, that sounds a lot nicer than what we say. Okay. So he was in the loo, and as he was in there, he was doing the Ozzy Osbourne thing, and he was staring at a container of talcum powder that his mom had. And this is kind of Ozzy's like, whatever the name of that talcum powder was, he was going to call him that plus the blues band. But they ended up a few weeks later being in Birmingham and seeing this long line of people going to a movie called Black Sabbath. The line was like wrapped around the block trying to get into this movie. And they thought to themselves, it was a scary movie, the movie Black Sabbath. And they thought to themselves, nobody's doing really scary music right now. So we're going to do scary music, and we're going to call ourselves Black Sabbath. Wow. And I have another theory on this, Leanne. And here's my theory. Let's think about Ozzy Osbourne. How many girls back when Ozzy was, starting out or famous, do you think were like, going to bed thinking, oh my God, Ozzy Osbourne is the cutest guy.
Yeah, I would say probably
oh my God,
not.
If I could just get a hug from Ozzy Osbourne and dance with Ozzy, that would make my whole year.
Yeah.
You think that happened?
Yeah, well, maybe not at the very beginning. But I mean, as his career sort of heightened, I would imagine the amount of women that was interested would have too.
Yeah. So as he got famous, but like he's not a heartthrob. Like they couldn't have done pop music. They couldn't, they couldn't have done like, Black Sabbath, Happy Sabbath. They couldn't have done that.
When you said they was going to name themselves after a talcum powder, I'm trying to think of like the most like famous brand we have, and it's probably like Imperial Leather. And that wouldn't be such a bad name for a band, would it? Imperial Leather.
No, it's just funny. It's just like, I'm going to make up a name for my band, and we're going to be world famous, and we're going to do really well, and it's going to get me out of poverty. Let's see, where can I find a name for my band? Well, I'm going to go to the loo right now. Oh, look, there's a bottle of talcum powder. I got a name for the band. Guys, come here. This is the best name ever.
Yeah.
I imagine Nikki Sixx was doing the same thing. He was down on Sunset Strip, and he was inside the Whiskey A Go-Go, and he went to the can. That's what we call it too in the United States. And he was like, oh, here's a bottle of Joy soap. Oh, I think I'll call our band, Joy, or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
so I know you're from Kansas. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah. So I border Kansas, but I grew up about 30 minutes from Kansas in Missouri, but I was 30 minutes from Kansas. But I won't interrupt you. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think I can speak for most British people when I say that whenever we think of Kansas, we think of the Wizard of Oz, and I was just wondering. So is that what it's like? Is it just fields everywhere? Dorothy wanted to just get out and have an adventure. Is that what you was after too?
It's not unlike that, particularly in Kansas. Like I grew up in a town, Leanne, right outside of Kansas City, Missouri. So that's something we have in common. Like you're growing up in a little town right outside of Birmingham, which has
correct.
2 million plus people. Kansas City's that large as well. And so I had the big city that was really close to me. But in the same respect, if I went over to Kansas and just got on the highway and started driving, at some point I looked to my left, I looked to my right, cornfield. An hour later, I looked to my left, I looked to my right, cornfield. And if I blow past my city away from heading to Kansas City and start heading up north, I look to my left, I look to my right, soybeans. An hour later, I look to my left, I look to my right, cornfield. So I grew up thinking that, farmland, all around us, Leanne, all around us.
And there must be some famous people too from Kansas and Missouri,
Yeah, there are. I'm not making this up. Eminem went to middle school.
Okay.
Marshall Mathers went to middle school at a school I believe called Rubidoux Middle School, about 3 to 4 blocks of where I grew up. Eminem. Eminem's a little younger than me, but that's where he grew up. But you know where he tells people he's from, because it's all about image. He's from Detroit.
Yeah, that I was about to say. I had no idea, because I always thought that he was from sort of from a bigger city, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, go to Wikipedia and just Google him, and it'll say St. Joseph, Missouri. So Eminem, Marshall Mathers, world famous rapper, grew up the streets of St. Joseph, Missouri, which for the most part, super, super safe.
Oh, well, there you go. See, I've learned quite a bit already today.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Well, and here's something kind of fun to talk about. So we're talking about Black Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne. And one thing I want to leave people with, like you mentioned about eating a bat, and I'm wondering if I'm in downtown Birmingham, can I attend a cafe and get like bat head soup?
No, we don't. But perhaps they could invent they could invent a dish in the name of Ozzy Osbourne. You know, sell it around Halloween time. Yeah, I think it would do well.
Yeah. I guess I'd have to have an English accent to do it, but excuse me, what's the soup of the day? Yeah, is that more English or is that more Australian? Because no,
it was a posh. I think it was a posh English accent, which is what most people go to straight away when they do an English accent. See, I'm not posh. I'm from council estate, which is a lower class area. So I guess it was like what you would call in America, like the projects.
Yes.
Where it's all a housing that the government own. So anyone in England would hear my accent and straight away know that I'm a lower class English person. So, but I can do a higher class one. So, like, good afternoon. I would like some crumpets and tea, please.
I like it. That's great.
Yeah.
Crumpets and tea, please.
Yes. And with your pinky finger out as you're drinking.
Ah, I see. Okay. Yeah. Very nice.
But yeah, I can't remember the last time I had an afternoon tea. Perhaps I should,
Well,
celebrate
now I can't. I have never in my entire life, Leanne, had crumpets in tea. In fact, somebody could put crumpets in tea in front of me. I would know one was tea, but they could put licorice in front of me and tell me it was crumpets, and I'd be like, "Oh, thank you very much."
Crumpets are a strange food, to be honest.
Are they? What is it exactly?
I'm not even sure how to describe it. I guess we have it instead of toast sometimes, but it's like, so you put it in your toaster, and it's sort of like a cake version of toast. It's a circle. It looks like a sponge, like a circle sponge. It's strange. It's very strange.
And you guys also, like, this always cracks me up. Bangers and hash. Am I making that up? Is that just an American thing? Like they're lying to us? You guys really don't have it.
We have it. Yeah, we have it. I don't personally like it, but yeah, it's a very cheap meal that I think most grandmas and older parents will put together. Yeah, it's not nice.
Not good at all. Huh?
But it is definitely a thing. Yeah.
See, when I was growing up, sometimes we would have like Spam. But they didn't call it Spam, but it was basically Spam, and it was like ham in a can, and you take it out and you cut it and you fry it to take away some of the bad taste of it, and you eat it with eggs. And I didn't know any different. I thought it was fantastic. Just like I grew up eating fried bologna sandwiches and thought that was fantastic. When I was a kid, we used to fight over bologna in my house. Which is,
I tell you what, we used to fight over, and I think this is an American thing, is Pop-Tarts.
Pop-Tarts. Did you guys have Pop-Tarts?
It hasn't been a thing for ages. Like when I was a kid, you could get it from a very, very few shops. So when my mum did get Pop-Tarts, we felt so cool, and it felt like a huge treat.
Oh, yeah.
They've become more of a thing now, and my kids love Pop-Tarts.
Love
And
them.
I always
Okay.
kind of feel a bit American when we have Pop-Tarts.
Sure. Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Hey, okay. So one last thing about Ozzy, and then we're going to leave the whole Ozzy thing. But folks, this is all going to be about the 80s. We're just letting you get to know us so that, you know, we want you to tune in. We want you to share this with your friends. So we're trying to be real, right, Leanne?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, we are. I mean, this is the authentic self. We are using fake names, though. And if you guys come on the show, we'll use your fake name, whatever you come up with, as long as it's, you know, copacetic. But one last thing about Ozzy. So it seems like whenever you do a record in the record industry, because I've read extensively about like famous people breaking records or whatever, you have to come up with this like extraordinary story. And then you learn the extraordinary story about how you came from nothing and now you're world famous and you cut a bunch of records. And so Ozzy, when he gets interviewed, he talks about Birmingham. And when he talks about it like it's a little townage with 3 buildings. And how many people are there, Leanne?
There's over 2 million. Yeah.
See?
But where he's from, I mean, it's all sort of segregated into, you know, into different areas. So I suppose sometimes if you don't leave your own area, sometimes it can feel like you're quite isolated.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I just get a kick out of it because it's like, you know, I come from a town of like 80,000 people and probably over 100,000 people in 30 minutes from, you know, I think 2 million people. So, so I tell people I'm a country boy, and of course I grew up surrounded by farmland and knew some farmers. And even where I'm at right now in Texas, I can drive 10 minutes. I'm at the lake. And if I can drive past the suburbs, I'm back in the country again. And it's just beautiful.
Yeah.
And we have a bunch of folks we know that own horse ranches, and we can go see, you know, play with horses. We'll get to that though, but it just tickles me. Somebody like Ozzy Osbourne gets interviewed, like, you know, I grew up in a little itty bitty area called Birmingham, you know, and it was a tiny area, and it had 3 million people. Come on, Ozzy, 3 million people is not a tiny area.
Yeah. I think it's quite funny actually, because it is full of, it's a huge place with a lot of people, and all different kinds of people. And I just still can't find a partner. I've been single for years now. So
that's all going to change with our podcast, Leanne. That's all going to change. You're probably going to have to fight them away. Yeah. They're going to be like, Leanne Savage, I need a date.
Yeah.
Would you go to dinner with me?
Yeah.
That can't happen, Leanne. You're going to be world famous. You are going to be world famous.
You never know. I might meet an American.
Yeah. You never know. Okay. So I want you, Leanne, to share with everybody the very first time, because a lot of people didn't maybe catch this, but Leanne is basically, I'm going to say, Leanne, you're a professional comedian, because I don't have the guts to get up on stage and make anybody laugh. In the past, all I've ever done on stage, if you discount 6th grade when I did the 6th grade variety show, all I've ever done is get up on stage, and I spent some years in technology, and I would announce the engineer. I would tell everybody where the bathroom was, and so that people didn't feel insecure about getting up in the middle of the engineer's presentation, I'd be like, to the left, the bathrooms are here. To the right, the bathrooms are here. Please, feel comfortable to leave the presentation at any time and use the bathroom. No problem returning back to the presentation. And Leanne, if you've ever sat in on a technical presentation from an engineer, everybody was so happy to find out that they could leave and go to the bathroom.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Including me, Leanne. I was like, as soon as I got done, I'd heard the presentation so many times, I was like, I'm going to show everybody how easy it is to leave and go to the bathroom, and nobody's going to care.
Yeah, actually, I think that's quite a good idea. If anyone ever gets really nervous and regrets getting on stage to do comedy, they could just pretend they're there to tell people where the bathrooms are. It's never too late to bath.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, but again, tell us what was it like? Like, how did you go from, just like I call you a triple threat because you're a mom, you're a hairdresser, and you're also a professional comedian. Kind of walk everybody through like what it was like the very first time you got on stage. And then 2, walk everybody through, what made you go on stage the first time? Like, how did you get the idea that, hey, I'm going to be on stage and be a comedian?
Well, I've always been, and at parties, I've always been a lot. Sorry, my daughter's getting a little.
Oh, you are going to bug me. I have 2 teenagers and a dog that'll bark. The drop of a hat.
I've always been the life and soul, and everyone has always told me to do comedy. But I always said to people, it's a lot different making your friends laugh and making your family laugh at a party. People that and that you feel comfortable with, rather than getting on stage and making people laugh that you've never met before in your life.
Right.
And all you have as company is a microphone. But my sisters always nagged me to do it. They always told me that I would do really well, and they found me an open mic night. They went out there, and I was supposed to do it in 2 weeks' time, and he rang me up 2 days before. No, it was the night before, and he said I had a dropout, and he asked me if I would fill in. So I had about 18 hours.
18 hours.
To write a 10-minute set. And I didn't manage to write a 10-minute set. I managed to write a 6-minute set, but in 18 hours. And I got there. I was so super nervous, but it helped.
Yeah.
Everybody was so friendly, and I had two alcoholic drinks just to calm
calm the nerves a bit before you had to hit the stage.
Dutch courage is what we call. Sorry, my daughter's just a little bit upset. Yeah,
hey, Leanne, just give her a Pop-Tart.
Yeah, that's it. What we call Dutch courage, and that did help a lot. And once I got up there, I got offered other gigs by other people that were there. So it sort of ball rolled from there, and I've been going ever since. And it's been about a year and a half now.
Yeah, it's impressive.
I've done a few. I have done some, some professional gigs alongside some good comedians and stuff. And
sure.
And I will say, even if I do say so myself, I'm quite liked on the circuit. Everyone always has positive things to say about me, which is a huge boost, especially when I get an inbox and someone says, you've been highly recommended. And that's a huge ego boost.
That's awesome. Well, you are authentically funny, and I think that people, especially this day and age, they think that people have to be, crude and curse and what have you to be funny. And there are some people that are just funny. Like you can't put your finger on it, so to speak, but you're authentically funny, and I really appreciate you, partnering with me, because this thing's going to be huge, Leanne. Okay, so tell us again, how nervous you were the first time you went on stage.
I was really nervous. I was super nervous. I felt sick to my stomach.
Yeah, and that's normal.
Yeah, and I think the reason I only managed 6 minutes is because I raced through all of my jokes. I told them so fast because I was just so nervous that it took me like almost half the time it should have done.
Yeah. Well,
but I got laughs, which is the main thing.
Yeah. Well, and you were telling me earlier, because we were talking. And folks, Leanne and I, we spent a lot of time talking as we were kind of putting this whole show together for you. But you had told me like the support that you got from your sisters the very first time. So did they have to get babysitters to come out and support you?
So my sisters, they're either babysitting or supporting me, or it's my dad babysitting. But my sisters, they promised me, they said, please do it. It's like, and they said, we'll come with you. And if no one laughs, they said, we will laugh so loudly that you won't.
I love it.
Yeah, there's like, you won't even notice that nobody is laughing because we'll be the loudest people in the room.
Right.
But luckily other people did laugh. But yeah, they've been supporting me since the very beginning, and they said they still believe in me. They still think I'm going to make it.
That's
and they
awesome.
said, they're going to be the first people there celebrating with me.
That's awesome.
There was the first people there cheering me on. So
now, are they your older sisters or younger sisters?
So they're my younger sisters. There's 10 years between me and my sister, and then 12 between me and my other sister. So they're quite a lot younger than me, which might be why they're maybe that's why they're my cheerleaders.
Well, yeah,
I
go
always
ahead.
they keep me young.
That's awesome.
They keep me in the know-how with all the younger people.
That's awesome. Well, and one of these days maybe we can have them on too. They can chime in on stories that they have, because we're talking 80s, but the program's called School's Out. So so I imagine they were either born in the 80s or the 90s, so they know something about the 80s.
It is, yeah. And I know that you do motivational speaking.
I do. I
was wondering, so when was you always motivational? I'm just imagining like a really young boy with a cowboy hat on, just motivating everyone in his class. Was you always a motivator? Was you always a positive person?
Well, I'm going to say that was I always maybe. I think I've always been a positive person. I don't know that I've always been like a motivational speaker, but I always been creative. When I was a kid, I did art a lot. I drew a lot. I was always creating something with like markers and pens and pencils and drawing and thinking things through. And I spent some time with a friend of mine, and we had a magic show. And we did our magic show for Girl Scouts. Can't beat that, right? Magic show for Girl Scouts and Brownies.
Yeah, that's a good gig.
It was. It didn't pay anything, but it was a lot of fun. Yeah. We liked the audience. They giggled a lot. So, but I did that, and for me, the reason why I like to motivate people, I feel like a lot of people are sad and they don't know how to change their way they feel about things. So that's inspired me to be both an author, a motivational speaker, and to give back, because I've spent the majority of my life, Leanne, being a sales guy, being a consultant, being on the road. But I didn't start out that way, Leanne. I started out really humbly. One of my very first jobs was waiting tables at a restaurant.
Yeah.
Which can be super stressful.
And I think that humbleness is what makes it's what makes you a sort of a real authentic person too. When you can stay humble. Yeah.
Yeah, we're all just human beings. It's a short life. But I got to tell you some funny stories about waiting tables. Yeah. So I was 16 years old waiting tables. And how I started waiting tables, they started me off as a busboy, which is clearing tables. Is that what they call it in England, a busboy?
You would call it a glass collector. So even if you was collecting plates as well, you would generally be called a glass collector.
Okay. So I was a glass collector, busboy, and I got to the point where I could clear the tables really easily, and got along really well with the restaurant management. And she came up to me one day and she's like, John, and this was in the 80s, and she's like, John, she's like, would you like to be a waiter? You'll make more money. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And she's like, well, you'll make more money in tips. We'll pay you less, but you'll make more money in tips. So you got to really suspend your belief on that one, Leanne. So John, I'm going to take you from $3.35 an hour that's guaranteed every time you walk in here, however many hours you're here, we're going to pay you $3.35 an hour to $2.30 an hour plus tips.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was stressful. Both being a busboy, a glass collector, and being a waiter. When I was a busboy, Leanne, every shift that I worked was about a 5-hour shift.
Yeah.
this was about a 120 person restaurant. I had to vacuum that restaurant every single shift. I had to clean the men's restroom. I had to clean the women's restroom, and I had to clean all the trash in the parking lot every single shift.
Yeah, that's a lot of work.
And for the rest of my life, Leanne, I won't forget cleaning the women's bathroom because it was horrible. Nothing against women, but there was stuff all over the place. Empty beer cans, this, that, stuff all over the place in the bathroom. We didn't even serve beer at the restaurant. It was horrible. The men's bathroom was much easier to clean because men just walk in.
I would assume it would be the other way around.
You know, I would too, but men are simple-minded. We just, we have one goal, we do the one goal, and then we leave. And, men are probably thinking about their stomachs, and they're like not fixing their hair, not putting on makeup, not doing anything else, not talking to girlfriends. We're just in, out, and, back to our, in my case, at my restaurant, your eggs, your ham, and your hash browns.
Yeah. See, going back to tips though, it's funny because in England we're not big on tips. We don't really tip. We don't often tip anyway.
Yeah.
It's not like a thing over here. You're not really expected to, or I'm not sure whether it's to do with the amount of wages that waiters and waitresses get. So generally in this country, they earn enough, to live quite happily, and so you're not really expected to tip. It's only just started to happen really recently. Yeah, and maybe that's the influence of other cultures.
Well, and being in I know there's a lot of differences between like the United States and in England, but I wanted to tell you a little bit about my second job. So my second job was I worked for a chemical manufacturing plant. And I would have to get up, Leanne, at 4:30 in the morning. And I'd get up at 4:30 in the morning, and I'd begin the process of trying to wake up. And so trying to wake up meant taking an ice cold shower to try to wake up, and then hitting myself with a warm shower to try to wake up. And at the end of the day, Leanne, I was still asleep.
Yeah.
But the job was dangerous, and my hat's off to people working in manufacturing because the job I had in was dangerous.
Yeah,
it was fun, but it was dangerous. It was I worked for a chemical company, and I took 5-gallon buckets off an assembly line from the minute I got there until the minute I left. They gave me some 10-minute breaks to break up the monotony of the day, and they gave me lunch. And they gave me the ability, Leanne, to either drink coffee or to drink soda. What do you guys call soda in England?
We could just call it pop.
Okay, so you guys call it pop. So my dad called it soda pop. My mom called it Coke. Regardless of what it was, she always called it Coke. But here's the thing, Leanne. It was dangerous, my job. And the reason my job was dangerous because this was like a 6 to 7 story manufacturing building, and we manufactured cleaning chemicals, and we manufactured paint removers. So paint removers are acid. So I had to wear like thick gloves, and I was the kid that was in school, and so they had me down on the very first floor. And as the 5-gallon buckets would come down, I had to take them off the assembly line. Well, the manufacturing plant was probably 70, 80 years old.
Wow.
And sometimes the buckets would get stuck on the hooks, and they were supposed to come down and drop by me and go down some rollers and roll to me. And then I would take a bucket off the assembly line. I'd put it on a wooden skid. I put 36 to a skid. I would rope them. And then the guy with the forklift, is that what you guys call it in England, a forklift?
Yeah, forklift, okay.
So the guy with the forklift, and I thought that was the best job because it seemed fun just driving a forklift all day. Yeah. So the guy with the forklift would grab it, and then he would stack them in lines, and then eventually we would put them in tractor trailers or like diesel tractor trailers. Is that what you guys call it in England, as a tractor trailer?
Yeah. So that's the tractor. Yeah, a tractor or trailer. Yeah.
Yeah, tractor. Okay. All right. So there are some things that we call the same thing. So anyway, though, what would happen is, since it was such an old assembly line, sometimes the hooks wouldn't drop the bucket, and these were filled with paint remover. And so I would have to stand on top of the metal rollers, very dangerous, with my work boots on, reach up above my head as these buckets were coming above my head, and take them off one at a time as fast as I can. And when you feel these,
like a very high pressured situation. That sounds like a very high pressured situation.
Oh my God, yeah, because if you let the assembly line break more than once, you could have gotten fired. And this was a summer job for me, and I couldn't get fired. I needed the money. And so so I would just get up there and just risk my life and grab bucket after bucket after bucket, pull it down, and hope that the paint remover didn't get all over me and scar me for life.
Wow.
But that was one of my jobs. And while I was doing it, the guy, the foreman that I worked for, he let me play rock and roll. And so I'd play rock and roll as loud as I possibly could to just kind of break up the monotony of it. That was kind of the motivational speaker. You'd ask me, like, why motivational speaker? Because I've had to motivate myself a lot.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And if you can motivate yourself through that situation, you can motivate anyone through anything, I'd say.
Well, and I think the other thing that I did that people might have an interest in is I used to run my own grass cutting business. So we call it landscaping business in the United States. What do you guys call it in England?
Yeah, landscaping. Yeah.
What do you guys call
it? We would call it like landscaping.
Okay, so you guys call it landscaping too? Okay. Yeah. So I had my own landscaping business, and that kind of started based upon I was working for a guy cutting grass, and this was before I started working for the manufacturing company. And the guy's like, I cannot let you use my lawnmower anymore. You're going to have to use your own lawnmower. And I went home and I told my dad. My dad's like, you're not going to use one of my lawnmowers to cut this guy, for this guy's business. So I learned an important business lesson that day. Don't let somebody, rip you off. And so I'm like, well, Dad, what am I going to do? I need money. And I was too young at that point to work for like a manufacturer. I was under 16. Yeah. And so my dad's like, well, let's think about this. And so he's like, I can pay you to cut our grass. My dad had a small business. He's like, I can pay you to cut the small business. And you could probably do some of our neighbors. Before I knew it, Leanne, I had like 14 people I was cutting their grass every single week. Wow. and it was good money. But my friends, I
also had a job before I was 16. So I did a paper round. I delivered papers.
Oh, okay. So you delivered papers. So did you do it on a bicycle, or did you just walk around and deliver the papers?
Oh yeah, I had to beg my brother to allow me to use his bicycle.
Okay.
And I didn't have my own, and it was so much faster using a bike. But my brother was mean, just like most people's older brothers and sisters. He was quite mean. So, like, he would make me do like his turn in washing up and stuff like that, just to let me use his bike.
Okay, all right. So he kind of it was a quid pro quo, meaning you had to do something for him so that he would let you use his bike.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
I was always extra nice to him around the time that I needed the bike. Sort of like give him a few compliments and be like, what do you want?
Well, you were telling me that, like, you're well, first, before we move on to let's talk about the very first time you cut somebody's hair, because again, you're a triple threat. You're a mom of 3, you are a professional comedian and you're also a professional hairdresser. So talk me through like the very first time you cut somebody's hair.
So I was at college, and I'd only ever cut the mannequin's hair at this point. So the tutor, our teacher, she asked us if we could bring somebody in that would allow us to cut their hair, and nobody would volunteer because nobody wanted their hair cut by someone that had never cut anybody's hair before. So the only volunteer I had was my cousin. So she said yes. But my cousin has the thickest, strongest hair. It's like a horse's mane. It's so thick. And my tutor said, you've brought in the hardest subject. She's like, if you can master this subject, then you can master cutting hair. And it took me ages, but I did it, and I did it dead straight. And I was really proud of myself.
Good for you.
Yeah, I've never made anyone cry. So I can say I've never made anybody cry.
And this was your cousin? You cut your cousin's hair?
Yeah, and to say thank you, I've always cut her hair for free ever since. So she trusted me the very, very first time. So the reward is free haircut for life.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it sounds like you've gotten a lot of family support with your two sisters supporting you as a comedian, your cousins supporting you as a hairdresser. So, so the other thing that I wanted to ask is, when you're cutting a stranger's hair, do they expect you to be a magician?
When I'm cutting strangers' hair, sorry.
Oh yeah. So when you cut a stranger's hair, do they expect you to be a magician? Like when a woman comes in.
Absolutely. I've been given pictures of Beyonce, Cameron Diaz, Jennifer Lopez, and I say to them, you don't have the same hair as those people, you don't have the same face as those people, and you're not paying me the same amount of money as they're paying their hairdressers. So yeah, we're not gonna send you home looking like Beyonce for that.
Right, you can't turn them into Beyonce and Jennifer Lopez with a pair of scissors and some curling.
More like Beyonce. If you ordered Beyonce, you know, from a budget Chinese online shop, maybe then.
Okay. So I hear you. So look at my hair. So can you turn me into Brad Pitt or Tom Cruise?
Yeah, maybe George Clooney. I'm thinking George Clooney.
Oh, nice. I like it. Okay. So some people, I don't know if you follow YouTube. Some people, I think I look like Bono. You think Bono? Here, let me act like I have a microphone in my hand. Bono?
I can see
Bono is from YouTube.
He's
from the 80s.
I always get Kirsten Dunst. People say I look like Kirsten Dunst. I think it's the cheekbones.
Okay. So Bono, Leanne, he's from a band called U2. They're actually from Ireland. Are you familiar with them?
No.
That's okay. They're an amazing band. U2 is an amazing band, and Bono is an amazing person, singer, performer.
I think I know who he is. Is he Irish?
Is he what?
Irish.
Oh, he's very rich.
Yeah, I think I know who he is. He did a lot of
Bono.
He did charity singles. Am I correct?
He does a lot of charity work.
Yeah.
I got a lot of respect for Bono. I don't even know if Bono's married, but he was a big part of the 80s. Hey, and you were telling me, like, a lot of people don't know this. For one, I was in high school in the 80s, Leanne, but your parents, didn't they meet in the 80s?
I think so. Yeah, I was born in the 80s. I was born in 88.
Right, you were born in the 80s.
Yeah, so my parents would have met in the 80s. My parents met around 86. So I've seen pictures of my mom from the 80s, and had like huge shoulder pads on, like huge shoulder pads. there's like big hair. My mum and dad both had big hair. I mean, the amount of hairspray that was used would have been unreal. My dad had a ginger perm.
I like it.
Yeah, so the sort of songs that was going when they met was like Run DMC, Madonna.
Run DMC, Run DMC, yeah.
Yeah, on the dance floor. 88, which is the year I was born, was the year of Salt and Pepper Push It. It was the film Cocktail came out with Demi Moore. And
Tom Cruise.
Still looks better than I do now, so she's doing something right.
Plastic surgery.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, but whenever I think about the 80s, I always think neon colours, pop music, and one of my favourite films is Dirty Dancing, which I think is going to be ultimate chick flick for forever.
Sure.
So that was the 80s too. So yeah, I mean, I was born in 88 and I didn't experience a lot of the 80s, but I think, we're all affected by it. The music, the films, the nostalgia. I do love the 80s.
Yeah. And in the 80s, and you might have seen one of these being a little girl in the 80s. But before we go to this next item that I wanted to mention about the 80s, when you were a little girl, did you try to do like some performances and some comedy for your family?
I used to do dances. I used to dance.
Okay.
Madonna was actually one of the ones that I used to love to make up music to. My auntie had all of the CDs, all of the tapes, and I would rehearse dance moves in my bedroom and then come out and show all my family, make them watch me.
Didn't you announce yourself though? You were telling me earlier in another episode.
Yeah, so my dad always said that he knew I would be some sort of entertainer because I used to just burst into the room where everybody was, and I just used to shout, "Ladies and gentlemen," and then I would just do something random. So yeah, he said he always knew I would, and I've always been an attention seeker my whole life as well. So
okay, well, you're in the right place then, because that's what our show is all about.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So again, if you're just kind of following us, maybe for the first time, but my name is John Sales Warrior, and this is Leanne Savage. I'm in Texas. Leanne is in Birmingham, England, and I'm a sales consultant, a motivational speaker, and a podcast personality that comes from a kind of a blue collar background. And Leanne is a triple threat. She's a mom of 3. She's a professional comedian, and she's also a professional hairdresser. So,
John, you are also a father as well, aren't you, John?
I am. I have 2 boys, and once I can afford the plane ticket, I'll put them on a plane and send them over to Birmingham.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I could be the professional tour guide as well.
Oh, okay. Maybe you can put them to work for me because I'm struggling here. No, no, they're good boys. You know, it's just hard growing up and being a teenager. But let's talk about some funny stuff from the 80s, because we promised people funny stories. So I'm going to tell one again. So when I was a kid, we had rotary telephones, and so like this day and age, my boys can't relate. They don't even know what a rotary telephone is.
Yeah,
but kind of getting you back in time. So a rotary telephone, you've seen them before, right? An old rotary.
Yeah, my nan was using a rotary telephone up until about a year ago. She still had a rotary telephone.
I'll tell you, Leanne, there was a lot of anxiety when you're a kid and you had a rotary telephone.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So picture yourself. So, you know, you didn't have the internet, you didn't have cell phones. Some little girl just gave you their phone number. Maybe you're in middle school, maybe you're in high school, and you have a lot of anxiety anyway because you're going to call her on the phone. Her parents might answer, it's just going to be catastrophic regardless. And kind of like you being a professional comedian, for me, dialing the telephone for the first time to call a girl that you wanted to call was kind of the same thing. A little sick to your stomach, a little anxiety. Am I going to be able to talk? And so, but the rotary telephone just added another obstacle. So you had to dial 7 numbers, and so you're like 1, 2, 3. Each time you had to make sure that it went completely around and you touched the metal piece. If you didn't touch the metal piece, or you could mess it up. And so when you dialed a rotary telephone, you never knew if you were going to get the right number or not. Unlike like hitting your cell phone and you see call Bob, boom. Call Sandy, boom. Rotary telephones were like, and it was laborious. I mean, 7 numbers all the way around. You already have a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
And so then, Leanne, you're like on the phone and you finally dialed the number and you're like, is Susie there? And then it'd be like, Susie's not here. You have the wrong number. And that happened a lot. And so now you're like, oh no, I'm going to watch Mayberry because this is just way too much anxiety for me for the day. But that's not me. I mean, I'm like, okay, I got the wrong number. I'm going to try again and try again and try again until I finally get her on the phone. But then too, the other thing that you didn't have caller ID. And so like girls could call you as a guy, girls could call me in the middle of the night, many times like on a Saturday, and they would just go in the phone book and see child's phone. And maybe they would know who I am. I don't know if they even know who I was. And so I get the night calls in the child's phone, and my dad was a really sound sleeper. And I was like, oh my God, if they wake up my dad. So the phone would ring. And so my heart would beat a mile a minute. I'd run into my sister's room where the child's phone was. I'd answer. I'd be like, hello? And they'd be like, is this John? And I'd be like, yeah. And they'd be like, and I'd be like, who's this? You know who this is. And I'm like, no, I don't. I have no idea. Sure. You mean you don't remember me? I'm like, no. And then like, you don't want to say that. So I'd be like, oh, I'm sure I know who you are. Well, tell me who I am. And, you just go round and round with them, Leanne. And, it's all based upon the rotary telephone. Lots of anxiety with the rotary telephone.
I always thought it was bizarre how in England we have, as an emergency number, we have 999. It makes much more sense with the American version, which is 911, because on a rotary telephone, if you're in a panic and an emergency on a rotary telephone, dialing 9 and then waiting 9, a little bit more 9, and I think it's the panic must have been horrendous on the rotary telephone.
The amount of anxiety with the rotary telephone was tremendous. And then too, like you get their parents on the phone. And you'd be like, may I please? And you had to have phone manners. Like kids today, they don't have phone manners at all. But like you had to get past the gatekeeper. All this was good training for me later on in life as being a sales warrior, because early on in life, I had to get past the gatekeeper to talk to my friends to find out when we're going to get picked up to go to the movies. And so I'd be like, may I please speak to Tim? May I please speak to Matt? May I please speak to Eric? May I please speak to Pat? And the parents would be like, hold on a second. May I ask who's calling? Again, gatekeeper. And I'd be like, this is his friend, John. Oh, okay. And then you'd hear their little eyes light up and be like, oh, okay, John, let me get him for you. And today kids can't relate. They didn't have the rotary telephones. They didn't have the anxiety of having the wrong number.
And they didn't have to go for the parents. I know that if anybody had to call me as a teenager, and if they had to go for my parents, I wouldn't have been able to speak to anyone.
Yeah.
My mum and stepdad wouldn't have let anybody through to the other end.
Yeah, it was. I mean, the things that we went through in the 80s, like an example would be if I went on a date with a girl, and the dad would come to the door before I get to see the girl, And then and depending upon the dad, sometimes the dad would bring me inside the house. This was the worst.
Yeah.
Sit me down on the couch, and it was like an interview. It'd be like, so John, tell me about yourself. And I'm like, well, let's see. I'm 17 years old. I have a really bad drinking habit. No, I'm kidding. You know, I can tell you all the capitals to all the states in the United States, and that's pretty worthless. But yeah, I mean, you would just get like, so the amount of training that I got living in the 80s for future careers was tremendous. But I got to tell you this story, Leanne, from the 80s. You're going to get a kick out of this. So I went to a Catholic private high school. Right. And our Catholic private high school was taught by nuns. Do you have nuns in England?
I have to say, I've never met a nun. And my son goes to Catholic school. And there are no nuns there. And I personally never met one. So I would say there can't be many if there is any.
Well, you got to picture a nun. And so this is how I grew up. So I'm in high school, and I had a nun.
All I'm going to picture there is like Sister Act, because that's my only like.
Sister Act. That's a good visual. So the nuns that we had in high school, you got to picture full habit. So the big habit that came down, the thing that came up, similar to like Sound of Music, all the way down, and then military boots. So picture that, and Leanne, nuns are married to Jesus. I don't know if you know that or not. They're either married to Jesus or God, and the reason why they wear a habit is because a habit is a reminder of being married to Jesus or God for life.
Yeah, no, I knew that there was I knew they were married to Jesus. I wasn't aware that that's why they wore the habit.
Right. So Sister Marianne taught me freshman algebra, and the funny thing about it was that Sister Marianne was probably 75 to 77 years old when she taught me freshman algebra. And so there were younger teachers teaching algebra when I was a freshman. But Sister Marianne, Leanne, she was a little off. And God bless her, she did amazing things to me in my life, and I got the deepest respect for the sisters and the nuns that taught me. But 75 years old, 77 years old, that's a little old to be teaching high school freshman boys.
She must have been teaching. Imagine how many children she actually taught over the years.
Yeah. I mean, well, and to give you an idea, she taught my aunt. So one Christmas I was talking to my aunt, and my aunt was like, "John, do you have Sister Marianne?" And I'm like, "Yes." And she's like, "Oh, well, she taught me algebra." My probably I was probably 50 roughly, and my aunt was probably 33, maybe even older than that, 34, 35, I don't know. But anyway, the idea was like Sister Marianne. So in the United States, when you have algebra, we didn't have the internet, so we had algebra books. And so at the end of class, Sister Marianne would say, "Okay, tonight I want you to do 1 through 100 algebra problems, and I want you to do all the odds." And that's really important to mention, because Leanne, odd questions were at the back of the book. So all the answers were at the back of the book for the odd ones.
It's so funny because I went to school. I'm only 32, so I went to school quite a bit of time after you did, and we had those same books. We had those exact same books where the answers were at the back, and I find it funny how, of all the time between us, they didn't think of a better way of giving the answers. Like, they just trust. There's like these teenage, like, they're not going to cheat,
Right. Well, so the younger teachers, The younger teachers, Leanne, they did the odds and the evens. And the reason that they had the odds in the back was that way you had you could check your answer. It was never meant to cheat. It was meant to check your answer. But you know what?
Yeah.
People cheated.
Yeah, we did too, yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to give you an example of Sister Marianne. Okay, so this is Sister Marianne. This is our math book. Here she is coming in to class. And she didn't say this, but this was like how you felt about Sister Marianne. It'd be like, today, students, I'm going to teach you the power of mathematics. I'm going to impart upon you the power of numbers. And it was almost like a holy imparting of mathematical principles from God above. And you're just humbled in her presence because you knew how long she had been around. And she would even hold the book like this, like you'd come in and she had the algebra book like this up against her chest and her habit and everything. And you just felt like crap for taking the answers from the back. Is how you felt. But it got worse. So when I was a kid, you had to put your work on the chalkboard. So like, did you put your work on the chalkboard?
No, by the time I got to school, we had whiteboards with markers. So,
Okay.
But yeah, I know we had one room, which was the spare classroom with a whiteboard with a chalkboard in, and we hated going there because we hated the sound and the feel of the chalkboard. Kind of just felt ancient.
Well, so we had chalkboards. You had dry eraser boards with markers.
Yeah.
So Sister Marianne would be like, okay, kids. And she would name people off. She'd be like John, Steve, Bob, Sandy, Susan, Mary, Marianne, Patrick. And she would go through all the kids and she'd be like, you do 1, you do 3, you do 7, you do 9, and give us all the odds to put on the chalkboard. And so there was a chalkboard in back, there was a chalkboard in front. Would be completely filled with students putting their work. And then Sister Marianne would walk around the classroom and go to the first one. And let's say she was at number 1. And not everybody cheated. Some people did it right. But she'd go to the first one, and this is kind of what she would do. She would go, because algebra, you do like a sequence of events. And so she'd be like, and she would look at the sequence of events and the steps that somebody took to find the answer, particularly if it was completely wrong. She would look at it like she had just eaten the worst food of her entire life. So she'd be like this, Leanne. She'd be like, and that'd be the first step. And then she'd go to the second step. And then the third one.
No hope.
And then it'd be like, and you'd be like, oh my God, people are busted. She's disgusted. Somebody might be going to the principal's office. And then Leanne, she'd get to the very last step, and there the answer would be, and she'd be like, it's a miracle. You know what I'm saying? It's a miracle. You got to say that. It's a miracle. So again, it went like this. It went like first step.
No.
Second step, third step, fourth step. Some people are overachievers. 5 and 6 steps. That was just complete junk. None of it was even remotely what you're supposed to be doing. Get to the answer, and Sister Marianne would be like, it's a miracle. You got to do that with me again. It's just so powerful. It's a miracle.
Okay. It's a miracle.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
And I was like,
So that's
bless her in her 70s as well. She definitely had the patience of a saint, didn't she?
okay. Oh, yes. Oh, my God. Yes, she did. And, we were just kind of I'm going to say we were super respectful but mischievous. So an example of being respectful would be, Sister Marianne, may I please go to the bathroom?
Mm-hmm.
An example of being mischievous would be this next story I'm going to tell you. So we were in Sister Marianne's algebra class. We had just gotten back from PE class. And many times both the girl freshmen and the boy freshmen went to PE class, and you put the boys on one end of the gym and the girls on the other end of the gym. And we didn't like counter or interact or anything like that. And so one of the boys in my algebra class, we get done, we're all kind of winded from algebra. We're feeling kind of mischievous. We get to class, and one of the guys, the leader, not me, turns around to the whole class, Leanne, and he's like, God, when sister comes in, everybody tilt your chair to the left. Didn't even know what it meant at the time, but peer pressure, everybody, yeah. Leanne, including the girls, including the goody-goodies, we're just like Sister Mary Ann comes in and we're like this, Leanne.
I'm gonna go with you. So you're all like,
yeah, we're just like this. We're just like tilting to the left. And poor sister, 75, 77 years old, she's thinking she's off balance. So she's like trying to reconnect with it. So yeah. It's like this, whoa. So sister's kind of doing the same thing. She's like, oh, whoa. She didn't fall or anything. But then all at once, the same guy that had us all do this, whoa. The same guy that had us do all this at once said, okay. And I don't know why everybody knew what to do next, Leanne, but everybody all at once, we went from this, we went like, whoa, with our chair. It's actually better if you go with your chair, like, whoa, whoa. Yeah. And then all at once, snap, everybody just popped their chair back in place. And sister didn't know what went on. She's like, she was just so relieved. Like you saw a big smile. At first she was like, and then next she was like so happy that she had her equilibrium back. She was like, and nobody, Leanne, got in trouble. And the reason why is because I don't think Sister Mary Ann even knew what went on.
Oh, bless her.
God bless her. Again, Sister Mary Ann, deepest respect for you and all that you did for us all those years. And I can't help it that, we were a bit mischievous. But Leanne, you were telling me another time that like in England, when kids are mischievous, what do you guys call it when kids are mischievous?
Yes, we would just call each other like a little bastard. So that's what your mum would call you. Like she'd be like, always a little bastard, or any other swear word that would go with any other swear word will do. But yeah, usually that's what you would say. And the teachers would say it about you, your parents would say it about you,
So I think in England it was easier to curse maybe than in the United States.
Yeah. I think we definitely love cursing in England. I think my parents seem to enjoy it, or maybe it was because I'm from a lower class area. Maybe it's like a lower class thing. We're just like everyone.
I don't know, Leanne. I've seen wealthy people curse up a storm, so I don't think we can blame it on being from a particular area. We all got to start somewhere.
But talking about how none of you got into trouble in that instance, I remember we was in class once and there was a note going around, and it was a bit of a mean note. It was about the teacher, but the teacher ended up getting the note, and she asked who would volunteer to tell the truth and admit who wrote the note, and no one would admit it, and I'm not sure even if anyone knew where it began. Right. So she said, we can't leave until we find out who it was. So we thought that if we all said it was us, like every single one of us, then she couldn't punish all of us. So then we would get to leave. So we did. Everyone said it was me, it was me, it was me. And it turns out she can punish all of us, and we all had to stay behind. So you all got away with it. We all got punished for one person's note.
Sure.
And I never volunteered to blame myself for anybody else's naughtiness ever again after that.
Sure. Yep. Well, so this has been a lot of fun, Leanne, from Birmingham, England. Leanne Savage from Birmingham, England, folks. And this is John Sells Warrior from Dallas, Texas. we're going to wrap up now. Before we wrap up, we just, want folks to know a little bit about this. So we're going to keep doing 1 episode a month, unless you guys want 2 episodes a month. We might do 2 episodes a month. We're going to make this funny stories. We're not going to do anything crude or rude. Don't know that your kids really want to listen to it, but we are going to make it family friendly for you. Because we are going to bring up stories about like high school, college, beauty school, the university, the manufacturing. We're going to do just like stories from our lives that are funny and they're worth telling. And then in this time, 80s are just so much fun to resonate about and reminisce about. Before we kick off, I'm just going to mention that a little plug for Leanne. So Leanne has her own podcast, and her own podcast is based upon your podcast, Leanne. You do like couples stories, right? So Leanne has her own podcast, and she does couple stories.
It's called Date Talk with Leanne, and I talk a lot about dates, and
dating,
the horrors of dating and being single and internet dating, and what the funny side of that, because it is really funny, and I don't like people to think that they're the only ones that these horrific things have happened to. We're all in it together. It's happened to all of us, and if we can laugh about it, then we're one step ahead.
Sure. No, absolutely. And that's awesome that you have your own podcast. I hope some people can listen to your podcast as well. I'm a motivational speaker, so there's stuff out there that you can see where I get interviewed about motivational speaking and inspiration. And I hope that helps some people. Here, though, we're not trying to do any of that. We're just trying to make you laugh. And so this broadcast is actually sponsored by my authored book, which is called Sales Warrior. And it's all about like giving people mental tools to be able to reach their highest expectation in sales. And Leanne, of course, is a professional comedian and a podcast personality. She has her own podcast where she does couple counseling. And folks, we're going to sign off now from Dallas, Texas. Bye-bye.
I'm from Birmingham, England.
You're from Birmingham, England. Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in.